Right now.
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 Because it's time to right now.
Right now.
Right.
Right now.
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 Because it's time to right now.
Right now.
Right.
Right now.
Welcome to another late night writing sesh. I'm Kaufman, and today we're going to continue to do what we do every day and get some work in on our stories. And let me tell you, I got some great ideas. I got some great plans and strategies as I'm thinking about the Last Scarecrow universe. So definitely come join. I'm going to continue diving into the third draft as I'm reading aloud and kind of doing some minor line edits and going through this draft. What are you working on? Come join along. Whether you're working on your own stuff or you want to come join me in this draft of Scarecrow, feel free to drop a comment, and that's what we're going to do. Kaufman, late at night. That's what we got right now. So I have the writing sprint set up. Chapter 4, this is where we're at, and this is the vibe. This has been the vibe for the past couple days. I'm actually kind of liking these late night writing sessions. So, okay. Hey, what's up, Courtney? Back working on Razor with all I learned from you with falling. Aw, I appreciate you. There's a heart. Another fellow writer in the community, Courtney. I appreciate you, my friend. Hope Razor is coming along. I'm super excited to see you launch Falling for a Storm. For anyone who doesn't know, Courtney joined us, I want to say early last year, 2024, and since joining us has gone through developing her first full debut novel, Falling for a Storm, which is a great romance novel. I might be a little biased, but really, really great work, Courtney. I'm really glad to see that you've gone through the whole process and that it's finally coming to life. So hopefully I'll be able to catch up to you. You're ahead of me now. You're getting your debut novel out. So hopefully, good luck with the book launch, and wishing you all the success, my friend, around August 2024. Yeah, man. I think you joined us right before the last Freaky Friday, actually. I think that's when you found out about us. And then I remember you coming in and joining in right before we started advertising for Freaky Friday. I'm so glad to have you part of the community, Courtney. You are an awesome writer. And yeah, I think with anybody who comes and joins us in general, whether you have been writing your entire life, whether you are a brand new writer, it's all about just learning and growing your writing skill set. One page, one word, one idea at a time. Now, we're going to hop into Scarecrow. So I'm going through the third draft. Feel free to come right along with me, or you can listen along. Draft 3. So I'm still in the middle of draft 2. Draft 2 is probably about 65%, but I need to get the first half of the book out because I need to get feedback while I'm finishing up the rest of the novel. So I'm kind of speeding through the first half of the book because I need it to be the first half of the book is readable, but I'm basically doing a minor line edit, and I have a list of plot points that I have to list of minor plot points that I have to fix. So for those of you guys who aren't familiar with my style, no, that's not what I want. I need the story Bible. For those of you who are not familiar with my strategy, essentially from draft 2, I came up with a list of about 20 or so different beats that I need to just iron out. And a lot of them are small things. They're all generally chapter things or like words or terminology or world building things that I just know that I need to fix. So yeah, that's my draft 3 to-do list, along with fixing the pacing. The whole book is readable right now, or up to the 65% mark I feel is readable, but now I'm just improving style. So let's see what we see. Where were we last? Scarecrow, that's right, just had his first memory, and he was suddenly reattacked by this bird, this crazy bird, the crow. Chapter 4, The First Snows of Summer. Mercy! Scarecrow shrieked. The crow's beak pierced the fruit as it swept out of his hands. Scarecrow's missing arm dangled hopelessly from the crow's talons as the flying motion brought the hand in for another slap to his face. Scarecrow ducked out of the way and lunged for his missing arm. He grinned as he finally clasped onto his own lifeless hand. Like a game of tug-of-war, Scarecrow gripped his dislodged arm by the hand, while the crow held the forearm in an iron grip. With unknown strength, the crow flew back, dragging him and his dangling arm through the dirt. "Give it back! Caw! Stop being a..." Scarecrow gasped as he was dragged over the island's edge, feet dangling. Bits of stuffing and straw splashing into the waterfall's depths below. He clung to his hand for dear life, amazed as the crow flew them around the waterfall. Water droplets splashed in Scarecrow's face as he sputtered, yet refused to let go. They approached one of the deep, dark holes in the wall. He dangled his head back. He tilted his head back, getting one last look at the underground homes of the creators before the bird flew them into the hole in the wall. Glancing up at the crow, he wondered why the struggle had stopped, as if it was somehow content to let him hang along. The cavern's natural lighting dimmed. Scarecrow got one last look up at the crow, who flapped fiercely forward. His poor detached arm stretched further, stuffing bursting at the seams. I don't think we need this. His poor detached arm stretched further, stuffing bursting at the seams. Then darkness enveloped them. Darkness soon enveloped them. Then darkness enveloped them. Soon, barely visible rock lights, far and in between, lit their way. A path of dirt stairs ascended below them, but the crow refused to let go. "Why must you be so mean?" Scarecrow cried, concerned that his detached arm would break apart under the weight. His left hand began to feel stiff. In the dim rock light, he could make out the empty coat sleeve flapping behind it. He could make out the empty coat sleeve flapping behind him in the wind. Come to think of it, the tunnel was growing windier and colder by the minute. Finders, keepers, Strawbrain, the crow's raspy voice caught out. A thick droplet pelted Scarecrow in the face. It chilled him to the core. Why was he suddenly freezing? His very straws shivered as droplets began pelting him continuously. Piles of soft white powder littered the ground beneath them as heavy droplets became numerous. Up ahead, a wall of powder blocked their way, but there was a small with a small bird-sized hole atop it. Aiming for a quick escape, the crow sped up, refusing to relinquish the arm. Scarecrow swung about, trying all he could do to dislodge it. They were close enough to the ground that the thrashing brought him to his tiptoes as the crow flapped fiercely onwards. The bird dragged him along closer and closer, and even closer to the white wall, until the last moment when Scarecrow thrust him itself at an angle, and swoosh! Scarecrow plunged through the wall, losing his grip as pure, powdery cold surrounded him. White powder everywhere. Freezing. "Cold!" he cried out. We don't need this. "Cold!" he cried out, powder filling his mouth as he barreled forward. With no sense of direction, he floundered, clawing and punching in all directions. While flailing, he felt cold air whip his hand as he tried to regain his bearings. Pulling himself up above ground level, powder flew all around him. Large, powdery droplets mixed with a biting cold wind whipped him in the face. Let's go. Pulling himself up above ground level, powdery. We use powder. Pulling himself up above ground level. Droplets. Powdery. Let's mix these. So pulling himself up above ground level. Large powdery droplets. Pulling himself up above ground level. Large powdery droplets mixed with a biting cold wind whipped him in the face. With a biting cold wind whipped him in the face. A white mist hung in the air as the powder flew at him from all directions. Trembling, he picked up a handful of the powder, made of delicate tiny crystals. A white mist hung in the air as the powder flowed in from all directions. Trembling, he picked up a handful of it. We need the powder. He picked up a handful of the powder. We use powder a lot. While flowing, he felt cold air whip his hand as he tried to regain his bearings, pulling himself up above ground level. Large, powdery droplets mixed with a biting cold wind. Large, powdery droplets and a frigid wind. And a frigid wind whipped him in the face. A white mist hung in the air as the powder flew at him, as the powder attacked him. Attacked him from all directions. Trembling, he picked up a handful of the stuff. Trembling, he picked up a handful of the powder made of delicate, tiny crystals. Snow, he murmured. Scarecrow shook off the snow, rising to his feet while trying to figure out where he was. Powder fell off him in droves. The snow fell off him in droves. Behind him, the cavern's exit was quickly being reburied with the passing snowfall. Straw and stuffing littered the ground, marking their trail. How much straw had he lost? An image of him ending up a pile of straw on the ground flashed through his mind. Scarecrow shivered, grabbed his damp coat, and pulled it tightly around himself. It still hadn't entirely dried. It still hadn't dried from the lake, causing a most unpleasant feeling. Each breath came out in a puff of mist. Dunes of snow surrounded him in all directions, while the mist or the snowfall made it difficult to see beyond any given rise. Glancing back, he considered returning to the cave, but the entrance was already buried by the snow. I don't think we actually need this. Scarecrow shook off the snow, rising to his feet while trying to figure out where he was. The snow fell off him in droves. He shivered, grabbed his damp coat, and pulled it tightly around him. All right, I think we can actually adjust this. So you see, I'm just moving these the paragraphs around because I think there's a little too much description, which wasn't necessary. So, snow, he murmured. Scarecrow shook off the snow, rising to his feet while trying to figure out where he was. The snow fell off in droves. Dunes of snow surrounded him in all directions, while the mist or the snowfall made it difficult to see beyond any given rise. Glancing back, he considered returning to the cave, but the entrance was already buried by the snow. He shivered, grabbed his damp coat, and pulled it tightly around himself. It still hadn't dried from the lake, causing a most unpleasant feeling. Each breath came out in a puff of mist. Scarecrow took a step, accidentally kicking something on the ground. Scarecrow took a step, kicking something on the ground. He bent over, brushing off the powder to see a thin, yellow, his left arm! The crow must have dropped it after their crash. Scarecrow snatched it up, delighted as he inspected his missing appendage. The straw was perfect. The vine-wrapped wooden fingers were incredible. He relished it, despite all the stuffing seeping out of the tears. But something dawned on him. How was he supposed to reattach it? The constant snow pelting his face made it difficult to concentrate. Had to get out of this cold first. Feeling around his coat, Scarecrow located another pocket opposite the one that held the beanie and the egg. He thrust his detached arm into the interior coat pocket, surprised to find it deep enough to fit in. The hand and wrist hung out of the pocket. He searched for the cave entrance, but all directions looked the same. A snowy wonderland. Caw! Scarecrow stopped. Caw! He peered over his shoulder. Caw! Came the crow's shriek for a third time off in the distance. He covered his eyes, noting a trail of feathers leading over a nearby mound. The cawing sound repeated. This bird was probably taunting him. Scarecrow tried to dig towards the cave, but the cawing intensified. Scarecrow tightened his fist. All that Crow had ever done was steal his arm, call him names, and terrorize him. And all that Crow had ever done was steal his arm, call him names, and be a menace. And be a menace to his existence. That's better. And be a menace to his existence. The screeching continued. Good riddance. Leave that bird to whatever fate befell it. The screeching became agonizing. Was he the type of creature to abandon? The screeching became agonizing. Grabbing his forehead. All right, so we're going to adjust this. Grabbing his forehead, he sighed. Was he the type of creature to abandon others to death, like the scarecrows, or his creators? He felt it in his chest. He was a savior. I don't think we need that. I think in the last draft, I used a memory. I used memory here, but I don't think it's actually necessary in this part because I strengthened the previous memory in the last chapter. So far, he has had one full recollection, which has just been a series of dialogue, which is all that he's remembered so far. Let's see if we can call back to the dialogue. Okay, so let's do this. Was he the type of creature to abandon others to death, like the scarecrows or his creators? What type of world? I'm gonna have to think about that one. I think it works. I feel like this beat can be a little stronger, but I kind of have to continue thinking through it. Scarecrow blocked out the snowstorm, turning around. He looked down at his palm, wooden fingers stretched out. What if the scarecrows and the creators had been abandoned? It was wrong to abandon one in need. It was wrong. It had to be. Scarecrow lifted the back of his coat over his tall frame so he could block out the snow. The back of his coat. Scarecrow lifted the back of his coat over his head so he could block out the snow. It didn't do much, but deter some of the incoming snowflakes. He trudged up the hill through the snow and down the other side before encountering the source of the disturbance. The crow lay on the ground at the bottom of the hill. Towering over him was a sizable creature, clawing wildly. Immediately, he felt burdened by a sense of responsibility. Scarecrow started down the hill, trudging through the knee-high snow. First, he went at a trot, but before long, it became a full-fledged run against the storm. White powder, snow kicked up in all directions. He flung his arms about wildly, yelling, "Hey you, get away!" Scarecrow's pace quickened to a run, closing in on the animal, a behemoth of a wolf, gray streaks and a purple scar across one blood-red eye. He closed. Scarecrow's pace quickened to a run. He closed in on the animal, a behemoth of a wolf, with gray streaks and a purple scar across one blood-red eye. The wolf snarled, turning its attention away from the crow. White powder splattered with red blood. Turning its attention away from the crow. White powder, red blood splattered across the powder. The wolf pivoted. The animal pivoted, bearing pristine white teeth as a growl erupted. Hind legs haunched, preparing for attack. Hind legs haunched as it prepared for an attack. Ignoring the mandibles of death, Scarecrow. Yeah, we can do that. Ignoring the mandibles of death, Scarecrow ran faster, arms flailing. He would be no contest against a wolf, but he couldn't just walk away. He would be no contest against a wolf, but he couldn't just walk away. Snow flew everywhere, teeth bared, growl erupting from his throat. No turning back. Only one thing to do. Reaching the bottom of the hill, he inhaled, puffed his chest out wide, and howled for all he was worth. Scarecrow crashed into the wolf as they tumbled to the ground. The wolf landed atop Scarecrow, staring into his eyes. Snarling, the wolf growled at him with bloodshot eyes. A commanding, forlorn howl rang out in the air above them. The wolf stopped, glanced aside, and hopped off before scampering away. The wolf stopped, glanced aside, and hopped off. Scarecrow peered out into the whiteout, barely making out another shape in the distance. The wolf scampered away, offering one lasting glance, eyes full of hatred. Actually, let's do this. The wolf stopped, glanced aside, and hopped off. It scampered away, offering one lasting glance, eyes full of hatred, before vanishing into the storm. The whiteout, the storm. Scarecrow sat up. Atop a nearby hill was another animal, tail swishing back and forth methodically on all fours, their figure mostly obscured by the whiteout. Yellow eyes with blue pupils stared at Yellow eyes with blue pupils stared down at him. Yellow eyes with blue pupils stared down at him. Scarecrow sat up. Atop a nearby hill was another animal. Six tails. Let's go. 6 tails swishing back and forth methodically on all fours, their figure mostly obscured by the whiteout. Yellow eyes with blue pupils stared down at him. The blue-eyed gaze, the bluish yellow-eyed gaze pierced his skull, making him feel shallow, hollow, and without hope. The animal barked and moved away, its form distorted and shrinking in the whiteout. The blue eyes rose into the air. The bluish yellow eyes rose into the air and flapped away. The bluish yellow-eyed creature. No, we can do that. The bluish yellow eyes rose into the air and flapped away. The bluish yellow-eyed gaze pierced his skull, making him feel shallow, hollow, and without hope. The animal barked and moved away, its form distorted and shrinking in the wind. The silhouette, a a vague silhouette. The vague silhouette. The bluish yellow eyes with the vague silhouette rose into the air and flapped away. And flapped away on some and flapped away with some type of wings. Scarecrow rubbed his face, blinking as the animal vanished, as the animal was no more. All right, so that is the end of this. I think that's the end of this specific beat. I have to make the snowstorm. I have to make sure the snowstorm actually works. Hey, what's up, ML? Happy Halloween, friends. Happy Halloween. Hopefully everyone is having a merry, scary Halloween. All Hallows Eve. Welcome, LeMay. Good night, all. Good night. And for all, have a great night. And this is, for my friend, it is a good night. We shall use good night as a greeting and not as a closing. I was like, we don't need that. Okay. So where was it? All right. I need to make sure the beginning of this speed actually works. All right. All right. So I think the snow beat really starts when he lands in the snow. Let's see, because I've cut down some of it a little bit, and right now the snow bit is about 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it'll probably be about 3 pages once it's condensed. Swoosh. Scarecrow plunged to the wall, losing his grip as pure, powdery cold surrounded him. White powder everywhere. Cold, he cried out, powder filling his mouth as he barreled forward. Let's actually fix. So Scarecrow plunged to the wall. Scarecrow plunged to the wall as he lost his grip. Cold, he cried out, powder filling his mouth as he barreled forward. With no sense of direction, he floundered, clawing and punching in all directions. While flailing, he felt cold air whip his hand as he tried to regain his bearings. Pulling himself up above ground level, large powdery droplets and a frigid wind whipped him in the face. A white mist hung in the air as the powder attacked him from all directions. Trembling, he picked up a handful of the powder, made of delicate tiny crystals. Trembling, he picked up a handful of the substance, made of delicate tiny crystals. Snow, he murmured. Scarecrow shook off the snow, rising to his feet while trying to figure out where he was. The snow fell off him in droves. Dunes of snow surrounded him in all directions. While the mist or the snowfall made it difficult to see beyond any given rise. While the snowfall made it difficult to see beyond any given rise. Glancing back, he considered returning to the cave, but the entrance was already buried by the snow. He shivered, grabbed his damp coat, and pulled it tightly around himself. It still hadn't dried from the lake, causing a most unpleasant feeling. Each breath came out in a puff of mist. Scarecrow took a step, kicking something on the ground. He bent over, brushing off the powder to see a thin, yellow, his left arm! The crow must have dropped it after their crash. Scarecrow snatched it up, delighted, as he inspected his missing appendage. The straw was perfect. The vine-wrapped wooden fingers were incredible. He relished it, despite all the stuffing seeping out of the tears. But something dawned on him. How was he supposed to reattach it? The constant snow pelting him made it difficult to concentrate. Had to get out of the snow. This cold. He had to get out of this cold first. Feeling around his coat, Scarecrow located another pocket opposite the one that held the beanie and the egg. He thrust his detached arm into the interior coat pocket. He thrust his detached arm into it, surprised to find it deep enough to fit in. surprised to find the pocket deep enough for the arm. Deep enough for it to fit in. The hand. He thrust his attached arm into it, surprised to find the pocket deep enough to fit. He thrust his attached arm into it, surprised to find the pocket deep enough to fit. The hand and the wrist hung out of it. The hand and the wrist hung out. He searched for the cave. He thrust his attached arm into it, surprised to find the pocket deep enough to fit. The hand and the wrist hanging out. He searched for the cave entrance, but all directions looked the same, a snowy wonderland. Caw! Scarecrow stopped. Caw! He peered over his shoulder. Caw! Came the crow's shriek for a third time off in the distance. He covered his eyes, noting a trail of feathers leading over a nearby mound. The cawing sound repeated. This bird was probably taunting him. Scarecrow tried to dig towards the cave, but the cawing intensified. Scarecrow tightened his fist. All that Crow had ever done was steal his arm, call him names, and be a menace to existence. The screeching continued. The screeching cause continued. Good riddance. Leave that bird to... Good riddance. Leave that bird. Good riddance. The screeching became agonizing. Grabbing his forehead, he sighed. Was he the type of creature to abandon others to death, like the scarecrows or his creators? Scarecrow blocked out the snowstorm, turning around. It didn't feel. He felt his chest. He felt his chest, knowing with knowing that it didn't feel right. Scarecrow blocked out the snowstorm, turning around. He looked down at his palm, wooden finger stretched out. What if the scarecrows and their creators had been abandoned? It was wrong to abandon one in need. It was wrong. It had to be. Scarecrow lifted the back of his coat over his head so he could block out the snow. Let's go. Scarecrow turned around. He looked down at his palm, wooden finger stretched out. What if the scarecrows and the creators had been abandoned? It was wrong to abandon one in need. It was wrong. It had to be. Scarecrow lifted the back of his coat over his head so he could block out the snow. It didn't do much but deter some of the incoming snowflakes. He trudged up the hill to the snow and down the other side before encountering the source of the disturbance. He trudged up the hill to the snow and paused. And he trudged up the hill through the snow and paused upon encountering he trudged up the hill through the snow and paused upon encountering the source of the disturbance. The crow lay on the ground at the bottom of the hill. Towering over him was a sizable animal, clawing wildly. Immediately, he felt burdened by a sense of responsibility. Scarecrow started down the hill, trudging through the knee-high snow. First, he went at a trot. Before long, it became a full-fledged run against the storm. Snow kicked up in all directions. He flung his arms about wildly, yelling, "Hey, you, get away!" Scarecrow's pace quickened to a run. He closed in on the animal, a behemoth of a wolf, with gray streaks and a purple scar across one bloodshot eye. The wolf snarled, turning its attention away from the crow. Red blood splattered across the powder. The animal pivoted, bearing pristine white teeth as a growl erupted. Hind legs haunched as it prepared for an attack. Ignoring the mandibles of death, Scarecrow ran faster, arms flailing. He would be no contest against a wolf, but he couldn't just walk away. Snow flew everywhere, teeth bared, growl erupting from his throat, no turning back. Reaching the bottom of the mound, he inhaled, puffed his chest out wide, and howled for all he was worth. Scarecrow crashed into the wolf. Let's go. The wolf crashed into Scarecrow. The wolf crashed into Scarecrow as they tumbled to the ground. No, that sounds better. Reaching the bottom of the hill, he inhaled, puffed his chest out wide, and howled for all it was worth. Scarecrow crashed into the wolf as they tumbled to the ground. The wolf landed atop Scarecrow, staring into his eyes. Snarling, the animal growled at him. Snarling, the animal growled at him with bloodshot eyes. A commanding, forlorn howl. A commanding, forlorn howl rang out in the air beyond them. The wolf stopped, glanced aside, and hopped off. It scampered away, offering one lasting glance, eyes full of hatred, before vanishing into the storm. Scarecrow sat up. Atop a nearby hill was another animal, 6 tails swishing back and forth methodically, on all fours, their figure mostly obscured by the whiteout. Yellow eyes with blue pupils stared down at him. The bluish, yellow-eyed gaze pierced his skull, making him feel shallow, hollow, and without hope. The animal barked and moved away, its form distorted and shrinking in the whiteout. The bluish-yellow eyes rose with a vague silhouette into the air. Let's go. Rose with the vague silhouette. The creature, just a vague. Barely a vague silhouette. The bluish yellow eyes rose into the air and flapped away with a gust of wings. Scarecrow rubbed his face, blinking as the animal was no more. A chill ran down his straw frame. His clothing was stiff from the cold. A chill ran down him. Chills coursed through him. But whether that was nerves or the snow was undecided. Chills coursed through him, but whether that was nerves or the snow was undecided. The snow was undetermined. His clothing was stiff from the cold. His teeth chattered, and he knew if he didn't find shelter now, he would end up in the snow with. The crow lay on its back, wings furled, red blood seeping from 2 bite marks on its side and chest. Snow stuck to his long, black, wrinkled feathers. And one bent wing flapped furiously. Crow. Find. Crow. The bird mumbled repetitively, clearly delirious. Scarecrow tried figuring out how to carry the crow with one arm. Why did you have to be such a meanie, Crow? We could have stayed in the nice warm cave. A dull red ember landed upon his outstretched arm. A similar ember. Let's go. A dull red ember landed upon his outstretched arm. Then another landed upon the powder, smoke rising as it disintegrated. Up above, the sun, or perhaps the moon, glowed a faint red, causing the white out around them to take on a faint red glow. It wasn't until a third ember burned a speck-sized hole through his empty coat sleeve that he realized it was some form of fire. It was some type of fire. Eyes widening. He panicked. Scarecrow slid his jacket off, awkwardly creating a bundle as he unleashed his straw body. Scarecrow slid his jacket off, unleashing his body to the elements. Scarecrow slid his jacket off, Scarecrow slid his jacket off, unveiling his straw body, his straw frame to the elements. as he created a bundle with his jacket. Scarecrow slid his jacket off, unveiling his straw frame to the elements as he created a bundle. He scooped up the crow, ignoring the snowfall. The cawing continued, but he paid it no mind. Picking up the crow, Scarecrow ran, screaming as bits of powder flew past him, while dodging burning embers that fell from the sky. While dodging burning embers falling from the sky. That fell from the sky. Can't have you dying on me. Who am I supposed to talk to then? Can't have you dying on me. Who am I supposed to adventure with then? I think that's it, because I've called to that term adventure a couple times. I think that's actually a good call. Picking up the crow, Scarecrow ran, screaming as bits of powder flew past him, while dodging burning embers that fell from the sky. Can't have you dying on me. Who am I supposed to adventure with then? The crow pecked weakly at his arm, but he ignored it. Scarecrow felt the fear welled in his stomach as he dodged. Fear welled in his stomach as he dodged the growing increase in sky-born embers. Fear welled in his stomach as he dodged the growing increase in sky-born embers. The reddish whiteout grew more prevalent as he ran forward blindly. Hopefully they could find salvation. An ember circled and burned through the side of his stomach. He yelped. The crow pecked again. Powder and embers everywhere. Couldn't concentrate. The crow pecked. I know we're going to die. Glancing down, he realized the bird was attempting to get his attention. Its beak pointed fiercely towards a nearby mound, which he had nearly passed. Was that a window in the ground? So focused on the falling embers, he nearly missed the gaping window and icy door planted firmly in the mound. It was a structure of snow and ice buried in the land and hidden by nature itself. Embers flew everywhere as another singed his leg and then his arm. He yelled louder, nearly dropping the crow. No time, he screamed against the storm of embers. Scarecrow slid down a short, worn-down path to reach the mound. Scarecrow slid down a short, worn-down path to reach the mound, arriving at a crude wall made of ice. He reached for a small hole in the icy wall as the door swung open. Lowering his head, he bolted inside and slammed the door shut behind them, cutting off all light and leaving them in near darkness, save for the dull red glow flashing through the window as the ember storm raged on. It's actually a really good ending. It is a good ending for the chapter. Lowering his head, he bolted inside and slammed the door shut behind him, cutting off all light and leaving them in near darkness, save for the dull red glow emanating through the window. Save for the dull red glow. Save for the dull red glow through the window. Save for the dull red glow through the window as the ember storm raged on. That's like it's so scenic. It's like, oh, I love it. I literally love the imagery I've set up. It's really nice imagery. I'm really happy with that. Man. All right, let's see where we're at. Embers for everywhere. Yeah, oh my god. Yeah, that was a good end to the chapter. I'm actually pretty happy with how that ended. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that chapter. I do think that there's more bits that we could continue to improve stylistically, but it's readable. Overall, I'm good with the style, and I feel like it's clear what's going on. All right, onwards and upwards. Which this chapter is one of my favorite early chapters, actually. This is one of my favorite early chapters in this part of the book. Of course, I start with a memory. Wake up. Don't you love this hat? Silly scare. Scarecrow sat up in a huff, coming out of whatever dreams clung to his mind. Who didn't he love? Who did? Scarecrow sat up in a huff, coming out of whatever. Scarecrow sat up in a huff, only recollecting vague words amidst his forgotten memories. Scarecrow sat up in a huff, only recollecting vague words amidst his forgotten memories. Who did he love? Bits and pieces rose to the surface, the clues intangible pieces to a puzzle beyond his reach. Let's go. Scarecrow sat up in a huff, only recollecting vague words amidst his forgotten memories. Bits and pieces rose to the surface, the clues, intangible pieces, to a puzzle beyond his reach. Feeling the brim of his straw hat resting firmly on his head, he sighed. More questions. Great. More questions. Scarecrow peered around. He peered around the cramped yet cozy, icy abode. While everything was frozen solid, none felt cold. On the contrary, the table, the ground beneath him, and the bed emanated a dull heat source. And the bed vibrated with a dull heat source. On the contrary, he peered around the cramped yet cozy, icy abode. While everything was frozen solid, none felt cold. On the contrary, the table, the ground beneath him, and the bed vibrated with a dull heat source. And the bed emanated is probably a little stronger. And the bed emanated, I think, is still strong. And the bed emanated with a dull heat source. Radiated, that's what I was looking for. And the bed radiated a dull heat. On the bed, the crow slept, eyes closed, murmuring inaudible whispers. Scarecrow didn't know what to make of this situation. He couldn't allow a helpless creature to be mauled. He couldn't allow a helpless creature to be mauled to death. What madness drove him to help this antagonizer? On the ground lay his left arm, sprawled out. Surprisingly, old Lefty was in much better condition than his right arm, which had gone through quite a beating. Beside them was his coat. The thick, coarse fabric was warm to the touch, just by lying on the ground. The moisture was already non-existent. The moisture had already evaporated. Beside the coat lay the egg, with the same dull glow from within. Beside the coat lay the egg, with the egg let's go with beside the coat laid the egg, an inner, a dull inner, beside the coat lay the egg with a dull inner glow. Beside the coat lay the egg, a dull inner glow within, alongside the red beanie. Beside the coat lay the egg, a dull inner glow within, alongside the red beanie. He touched the brim of his hat, resting atop. He touched the brim of his hat, fearful to remove it. What if the hat was what brought him back to life? His breathing quickened. He could only gulp and pull the hat tighter upon his head, reassuringly. Better to deal with a problem which made sense. Scarecrow reached for his left arm instead. He examined it for the first time since the crow, while glancing wearily at the bullet bird, stole it from him. Thunk. Hiss. Scarecrow jumped. A giant red ember had splattered against the diminutive window, spitting, sputtering, and smoking. The sludge slid down, leaving a trail of tiny flames, but otherwise remaining on the exterior. Some window. A quiet solitude rested over the room. Only the winds of embers crackled outside in the distance. Hey, what's up, Vomika? Welcome. Yeah, good morning. Good evening. Good morning. All the greetings, my friend. He returned his attention to Old Lefty. The straw-laced forearm seemed to be in good enough form. He returned his attention to Old Lefty. The straw-laced, the straw-sinew forearm seemed to be in good enough form. So I kind of already said that in the beginning. Yeah, I mean, this is like a little slightly repetitive, and I could kind of said it here, so I don't think we need that twice. But I mean, it's kind of in comparison to his right. I'll let it pass for now. He returned his attention to Old Lefty. The straw sinew forearm seemed to be in this Old Lefty. He returned his attention to Old Lefty, which was in good enough form. Even the sturdy wooden fingers were unbroken. He lifted in the air inches. He returned his attention to Old Lefty, lifting. He returned his attention to Old Lefty, lifting it in the air inches from his empty arm socket as stuffing seeped out. However, would he reattach it? However, would he reattach it? Caw! The bed was empty. He looked up. We don't need the bed. The bed was empty. He looked up. As the crow. He looked up as the crow flew down. And yanked his arm out of his hand. Hey, not again! The crow flew in a circle, drops of blood splattering everywhere. Scarecrow swiped at him unsuccessfully as the bird zigzagged each successive attempt. The feathery foe somersaulted, the nosedive straight at him. Old Lefty clutched in his talons. The crow air rolled over. The crow air rolled over. Old Lefty clutched in his talons. The crow slammed. The crow slammed the arm into Scarecrow's side, just as... Okay, that's right. The crow slammed the arm into Scarecrow's side. The crow slammed the arm into his side, just as Scarecrow grabbed him by the chest. That's right, because I have to make this clear. The crow slammed the arm into Scarecrow's side, just as he grabbed him by the chest. The crow slammed the arm into Scarecrow's side, just as he grabbed him by the chest. So let's make sure that this action actually works. He looked up as the crow flew down and yanked his arm out of his hand. Hey, not again! The crow flew in a circle, drops of blood splattering everywhere. Scarecrow swiped at him unsuccessfully as the bird zigzagged each successive attempt. The feathery foe somersaulted, then nosedived straight at him. Old Lefty clutched in his hands. The crow slammed the arm socket. The arm The crow slammed the arm. Let's see, what would that be called? The crow slammed the arms joint, the ball of the joint, the arms. The crow slammed the arm's upper joint into Scarecrow's socket. I'm wondering if I have to clarify. The Scarecrow slammed the crow slammed the arm into Scarecrow's side, just as he grabbed him by the chest. Shame on! A shockwave erupted from the touch. Fire. The scent of char and smoke filled his nostrils. A shockwave. Let's see. And then what is the shockwave? A shockwave. A shockwave of circular white energy erupted from the touch. Fire. The scent of char and smoke filled his nostrils. Ravens attack. Ravens attack. Caws, roars, and hisses echoed everywhere. Younglings, aye. Smells pummeled his senses. Words slammed into his head like a smack to the brain. His fingertips pulsed. The fistful of feathers prickled. Scarecrow ripped his arm from the crow's chest, watching the bird fall. Ripped his arm. Scarecrow let go of the crow as it fell to the ground. Scarecrow let go of the crow as it spiraled to the ground. Scarecrow let go of the crow as it spiraled to the ground. But the bird looked at him. But the bird looked up at him. Eyes glowing with white energy. But the bird looked at him, up at him. Eyes glowing with immaculate white energy. Eyes momentarily glowing with immaculate white energy before returning to their normal black and white. Scarecrow let go of the crows that spiraled to the ground. Blood sprang wildly. But the bird landed and looked up at him, eyes momentarily glowing with immaculate white energy before returning to their black and white. Scarecrow let go of the crows that spiraled to the ground. Blood sprang wildly. When the bird landed, as the bird landed, it looked up at him. As the bird landed, it looked up at him. It peered at him. As the bird landed, it looked through him. Eyes momentarily glowing with immaculate white energy before returning to black and white. An ache Scarecrow grabbed his forehead. An ache flared to life deep in his head that he had never experienced before. A crisp, metallic voice echoed in the distant corners of his mind. You with the touch. The voice faded. Help. Dying. Help. Dying. Find the red tower. Hello? Scarecrow cried out. The throbbing sensation faded away. The throbbing sensation ceasing. I don't understand. Help what tower? The crow's cawing returned his attention to the bleeding mess sprawled upon the floor, sprawled before him. Did you hear that? His concern grew increasingly apparent at hearing a voice in his head. His concern growing increasingly apparent. Perhaps he imagined it. Hello, Scarecrow cried out, the throbbing sensation ceasing. I don't understand. Help what tower? The crow's cawing returned his attention to the bleeding mess sprawled before him. Did you hear that? His concern grew increasingly apparent. Perhaps he imagined it. Save the younglings. The crow cawed out in a worried tone. The resonance of his voice had shifted. Deeper, the resonance of the crow's voice had shifted. Deeper, fuller, and somehow more profound. Scarecrow didn't understand it, but the callousness had diminished. Had been diminished. He reached down to touch the crow. Surprised to feel the weight of his left arm attached firmly to his body once more. The straw around his arm socket he reached down to touch the crow, surprised to feel the weight of his left arm reattached firmly to his body once more. The straw around his arm socket, the straw around his left arm socket had rewoven itself back into his body. The crow had put his arm back. Intentional or accidental? No, we don't need that. The crow had put his arm back. Crow, I don't know. Mr. Crow. Mr. Crow? Respect your elders. Mr. Crow let out a painful cry. Or sticks and stones. Scarecrow didn't quite understand what was going on. Even though the crow, Mr. Crow, I don't know. I am Mr. Crow. Mr. Crow? Respect your elders. Mr. Crow let out a painful cry. Or sticks and stones. Scarecrow didn't quite understand what was going on. Even though the crow, Mr. Crow, was bleeding profusely from the wolf bite, his large gray eyes were bright. His large black and white eyes were bright, full of life. How are you? How are you? How are you? Mr. Crow repeated. Fine? Confused? 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 Mr. Crow tilted his head back. Mr. Crow again spit his words back at him with a tilt. Spit his words back at him with a tilt. Tilting his little... Mr. Crow again spit his words back at him, tilting his little black head, eyes locked. Mr. Crow again spat his words back at him, tilting his little black head, eyes locked. He appeared as confused as Scarecrow felt. They shared a look of reluctance. Old habits, Mr. Crow murmured. Mr. Crow murmured. You, Strawbrain. Gonna let Mr. Crow bleed to death? And I think that's the way to do it. Scarecrow looked around at a loss for what to do. Mr. Crow caught out in pain. The blood-covered ice looked more like a war scene by the minute. The crow's beak tapped the ground near Scarecrow's coat. Tear, 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 he repeated. Scarecrow knocked on his head. Why hadn't he thought of that? He fumbled for the coat, tearing a piece from the bottom and leaving the fabric fraying. Tearing a piece from the bottom to leave and left the fabric fraying. With his nimble wooden fingers, he stretched out the piece of black coat material. With nimble fingers, he stretched out the piece of coat. With nimble wooden fingers, he stretched out the piece of coat and laid it on the ground. Roll over, he whispered. Fear rose at the thought of touching the bird again, the thought of touching the crow again. With a heave, Mr. Crow caught out in pain and rolled onto his chest. Scarecrow tied the back of the coat fabric in a tight knot. Scarecrow wrapped the coat fabric around the crow's chest, tying it off with a knot. Immediately, the crow pushed himself onto his talons, one wing at a time. He groaned each second until until he was standing tall. Groaning, he finally stood tall. Groaning, he finally stood tall. With a spin, he cawed. Well done, cough, youngling. With a spin, he cawed. Well done, cough, youngling. The black velvety feathers in the crow's chest and the stomach. The black velvety feathers of the crow's chest and stomach were matted with thick blots of blood. The bird wobbled, but retained his footing. Nothing like a little blood. Nothing like blood, he caught out while attempting to regain his balance. Scarecrow didn't know what was more confusing, the crow's sudden change in demeanor or his ability to remain standing after losing so much blood. Did scarecrows bleed? He wondered if scarecrows... He opened his mouth to speak, but Mr. Crow beat him to it. Why did you capture and steal me away to this crude hideout, young knave? Why capture and steal me away to this crude hideout, young knave? Crow cawed. Mr. Crow cawed, eyes gleaming. Scarecrow stuttered for words. What? We're here because of you. Mr. Crow craned his neck, nodding. I joke, I kid, he sputtered while tossing his wings into the air and groaning at the pain. Mr. Crow, why did you steal my arm? I stole your arm? You don't remember? Scarecrow asked, exasperated. Mr. Crow looked hauntingly at the window, now clear of embers or white powder. He walked towards the window in a trance. His talons clawed the ice-ridden floor, leaving marks with each step. Scarecrow raised a hand in warning. Mr. Crow walked forward, colliding with the wall. He crashed onto his butt. He sat on the ground. Mr. Crow walked forward, colliding with the wall, and sat on the ground. Scarecrow rose to help him, but bashed his head against the ceiling. Scarecrow rose to help him, but bashed his head against the low hanging ceiling, falling back to the ground. Scarecrow rubbed his forehead and looked up at Mr. Crow. They watched each other. The feathery bird leaned his head against the wall, cawing in what sounded like laughter. A grin hit Scarecrow's lip, and he laughed. They fell to the ground in a bout of laughter. In a bout of conjoined laughter. They fell to the ground in a bout of shared laughter. Their laughter filled the icy abode with sound. Lying on his side, Scarecrow whispered, "You really don't remember why you took my arm?" Mr. Crow shook his head. all scarecrows have finger shockwaves? All scarecrows finger shockwaves? Finger shocks? Finger shocks? Scarecrow rubbed his fingertips together, whispering, I don't know why I woke up with this hat. I don't know why the other scarecrows were dead. I don't know why the sun is the moon's shadow. I don't know why the scarecrows were dead. I don't know what is wrong with the elements. I don't know what's wrong with nature. I don't know why it snows fire. I don't know anything. A wing rested upon his shoulder. Scarecrow looked up. Struggling with words, Mr. Crow said, Save my younglings. You have younglings? Crow nodded. The crow nodded. Nest. At the nest. Why don't you return to your nest? Scarecrow asked, perplexed. Lost my nest. Mr. Crow droned on repetitively. He hopped in the air, flapping furiously, but strained by the bite mark which seeped blood through the tied-off coat cloth. He hopped in the air, flapping furiously, but strained against the blood which seeped through his makeshift bandage. He flew at the icy door, ramming his head into it again and again. Scarecrow pushed himself off the ground. He reached for his coat, grateful at the warmth that radiated from being on the floor. Scarecrow pushed himself off the ground. He reached for his coat, grateful for the warmth that radiated from being on the floor, and returned the beanie and egg to their respective pockets. How nice it was to have both arms back. He walked to the door and held out an arm. He waited patiently with an all-knowing look for Mr. Crow to land squarely on his arm, looking deep into those giant black and white pupilled eyes. He said, I'll help you find your nest, Mr. Crow. It was not like he had much to do with, it was not like he had much else. It was not like he had anywhere else to go. The image of the boy with the red beanie flashed through his mind. Find the red tower. Does red tower mean anything to you? Mr. Crow's eyes widened. Tin wizard. Tin what? The crow jumped off his arm and head butted the door. Find Tin Wizard, with increasing repetition. No, the storm, Scarecrow cried, trying to swipe at Mr. Crow, but it was already far too late as the door swung open, exposing them again to the unexpected elements. What an interesting chapter. So that's the chapter, and wow, oh man, it's so interesting at the early Mr. Crow, and I've been with him on such a strange journey. Wow. What an interesting chapter. Well, I feel pretty good with that. I feel like we were able to make some solid progress. I'm glad I went through about a chapter and a half. Um, that's interesting. I mean, I think the Crow chapter overall is solid. I think I can continue to adjust his dialogue so it works once we see the innumerable Mr. Crow return to life. For those of you who are further along in the world and the story with me, hopefully you're able to make some progress on your own end. Hopefully you're able to push through some writing on your end, whether that was brainstorming, editing, or something else in between. But that's all that I got for you today, my friends. I'll be back tomorrow with another writing stream. So thank you all for joining. If you're here late at night, don't forget to tap the like button. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write.
Right now.
Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now.